Good morning. Well, when we talk to the politicians or to the bureaucrats or to those people who think that they are the movers and shakers of society, each one of them professes and swears by transparency, openness, frankness, honesty, and clear communication. Nothing can be farther from the truth, especially when faced with those issues which ensure the livelihood, the well-being of the people. Can you believe that the economic meltdown, which is often the problem and is a cyclical problem insofar as every 3 to 4 years we face it. There is a talk of recession, there is a talk of meltdown, and people keep quiet or they are misled. As a matter of fact, it's known beforehand, at least 3 to 4 years beforehand, that we are in trouble. And yet the politicians keep their mouths sealed. The bureaucrats, as loyal employees, are mum. The media are deaf-mute. And when some news of this nature does come out, every effort is made to ensure that the people do not understand the reality. Imagine that the situation in most of the countries is going from bad to worse. By next 3 years, or rather within the next 3 years, we are going to have a situation where the economic meltdown would be such that even the most advanced countries would think twice before embarking on anything, any positive action. We are bound to be the most debt-ridden society that ever was. Till now we have always been talking about the national debt. And the national debt people have been taking with a kilogram of salt to digest because it doesn't affect them. But USA is under trillions of national debt. And now comes the news that the 7 countries in the next 3 years are going to be devastated by the debt burden. Number 1 is China. Number 2, Australia. And number 3, Canada, where we live. Can you believe, or can anybody believe that the government doesn't know it? They do. But they borrow money right and left. They borrow money to spend on the wasteful things. They waste money. They want to appear very large-hearted and open and caring, while all the time they are sowing the seeds of the national disaster. Now, if we say that why these 2 countries, especially Australia and Canada, are on the verge of virtual economic breakdown, especially since they are very resource-rich countries, we would be shocked to know that it's precisely because they are capable countries, it's precisely because they are resource-rich countries that these countries are in trouble. And it is particularly so in case of Canada. Can you imagine we have oil, and the government of Canada has stopped the use of oil, Canadian oil, so much so that they do not permit the transportation of oil from Alberta to Ontario. And they purchase oil from Saudi Arabia. Can anything be more shocking? That you have your own produce, but you don't use it. Then, the crass commercialization of everything is still worse. I was shocked to know, and this is the government information by StatScan, that for every dollar earned, an average American takes $1.67 as debt. The mortgage on the houses, the mortgage on the cars, the insurances, the medical expenses, the university and the college fees, they are such that the people max out their credit cards. And as I said, for every dollar earned, every dollar, they have a loan of $1.67. Now imagine a person, a household, or a country where the expenditure, or the debt rather, I won't call it expenditure, the debt is more than double than the income. It's a sure but definite recipe for disaster, for bankruptcy, and the total economic annihilation. I was also shocked to know another thing which I'd like to share with you. That the government of Canada, by loans and the grants and the other humanitarian projects all over the world, except in Canada, all over the world, spends every year $436 billion. And to an average American Canadian, it is a few hundred thousand. Why is it that the desire to be considered a good Canadian government should overpower the desire to be good to the Canadian people? I do not object to being charitable, but charity begins at home. If your own kids are dying of hunger, would you go and start feeding the kids of your neighbor? It's quite possible that you might divide the food between yourself and your neighbors, if you are really a great humanitarian. But then the first thing would be to reduce your own expenses, the redundant expenses. Imagine about 2 years back, we had a major scandal. And the scandal was about the Senate. Till today, $6,600,000 are still to be paid back to the exchequer by those senators who had defrauded the government. They defrauded the people of Canada. You might say that 600,000 is not a major sum. It is not. Looking at the way the billions of dollars are being wasted. But it is an attitude of mind and an attitude of work, the work ethics what we call it, that's important. Ill-gotten money must not be allowed with anybody. And then we have seen something very strange. It's like that you are living in a house and you are faced with a problem, and then what do? Instead of trying to earn more, you start selling your assets. The government of Ontario did so. It not only sold its real estate, which the government of Canada also has done, it also sold Hydro One, the parts of Hydro One, with a result, and it had a twofold effect. On the one side, you lost the asset. On the other side, Hydro, which is supposed to be a public utility service, became a commercial utility service, and the rates of the hydro for the common customer started spiraling up. Now coming back to the latest analysis by the Forbes magazine, which says that the next 3 years would see Canada along with 6 other countries, as I said earlier, China, Australia, Norway, Canada, Sweden, Netherlands, and possibly Germany, are in this group, which is facing a major disaster. But has the government or have the economists thought of a way out? You can believe that the economists would have an idea how to save off. You can believe that the people would assume that something is being done. But unless and until the top honcho in the government, the Prime Minister, gives a green signal, nothing would be done. Unfortunately, that will is lacking. They say, spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Here, both the flesh and the spirit are weak. It requires a clear, dedicated, honest effort to ward off the coming disaster. It's not impossible. There was a time when Canada was considered to be a paragon of the fiscal responsibility. The Canadian banks were supposed to be the best in the world. And today, where are we? One Canadian bank was fined yesterday $1.1 million for not reporting to FinTrack the dirty deed that resulted in Panama issue. You know, in Panama, millions of documents have come out and hundreds of the people are involved, including the Prime Ministers. One Prime Minister has resigned because of that scandal, but others are still there. But it's not only the Prime Minister, there are actors, there are businessmen, there are mafia people, and Panama is a real heaven for all the dirty money of the world. But leaving that aside, because that's an issue we'll take up separately, the point is the government of Canada and the honchos who control the government of Canada, what are they doing to stave off the disaster, while the Forbes has given a very clarion call? And the debt is increasing by 4.5%. So if it is $1.67 loss, the debt for when every dollar earned, and it increases 4.5% every year. You can well imagine in 3 years more, it shall be 12 cents more. And then where shall we be? Forbes has given a green signal to the disaster. Do the authorities on Ottawa have the guts, the courage and stamina and the capability to face this issue? They were very vocal to bring in the refugees, which has increased the deficit burden to $90 billion, $90 billion in the next 5 years. And that deficit is not counted in this parameter of Forbes, where they say that Canada is on the brink of being dead. Incidentally, are you aware that the state of Ontario, in which some of you live, the province of Ontario, this credibility was downgraded from AAA to -A. Wow. What shall happen to the world and what shall happen to the people? If the governments are not financially honest, if the political leadership is not capable of ensuring financial responsibility along with transparency, then you can be sure this is a definite recipe for economic disaster. And let's not forget that economic disaster leads to the breakdown of law and order, so it's a social disaster as well. Economy is the oil which lubricates the society. When the people are going to be hungry, when the people feel that their basic necessities are not being met, they would definitely not accept